Weird. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
It's called like hallucinating, which is it will just sometimes say things that are completely false, but behave like they're true.
Hey there, it's Tammany Hall, owner of The Simple Touches, and this is Simplifying Social Media. Get ready to navigate the dynamic world of real estate in the online realm. Join me as I chat with industry leaders who spill the beans on insights, strategies, and actionable tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just dipping your toes, we're turning followers into deals, step by step. Make sure that subscribe button gets some love and grab your notepad. We're diving right in. Welcome back to another episode of Simplifying Social Media. Today, I am joined by Marty Markenson. He has made over 1,000 gifts for realtors, and he powers his business Cavelit with ChatGPT. Thank you so much for talking to us about artificial intelligence today, Marty.
Of course, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, it's a topic that I am really excited about, and I use a lot in my business, and looking forward to providing some actionable steps on how you can use it.
I'm so excited to incorporate some of it in my business as well, because I know I'm not tapping into what it can do. And maybe you recognize Marty, we collab on gift stuff. So he's been on my social medias here and there. So perhaps you recognize his face. So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about Cavelit. How did it start? All that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cavelit is a way to bring your brand to life with gifts. You know, every impression, especially on social media, counts, and gifts are a great way to bring your brand and introduce yourself to your audience in a natural, intuitive way that works great for video, which is really popping off right now on all different social media accounts and profiles and platforms and all that good stuff. I've had the business running for 3 years. It started in just before the pandemic and then started ramping up during the pandemic. I was kind of working at a large public software company and also working on some of this gift stuff. And then slowly but surely it took over my whole day.
Okay, let's dive in. So let's say I'm brand new to ChatGPT. Maybe I haven't even looked at it yet. Is it as simple as opening it up and starting to ask the questions?
I would say it is as simple as that, but that's like the tip of the iceberg. And there's a huge, block of ice below it with other things that it can do. So it's really good at just asking questions. And I think that's a great way to just get a feel for the tool. But oftentimes people ask like a very simple question. Let's say, let's create an article of the top 5 restaurants in my area. Maybe you want that to be a blog article that can drive some SEO traffic. And maybe the first response is like, okay, this isn't good. And then people kind of throw the tool away. I would say
I do that all the time.
which is a lot of it. And there is some fine tuning that you should do. I kind of think about it as, as sculpting in a way. That first draft you get is probably not going to be perfect. And it probably will be very much okay, this looks like ChatGPT wrote this, and I don't want to have this on my website because ChatGPT wrote it.
Right.
And I think there's a refinement. It's I don't know, if you're a sculptor, you have your first draft, but none of the features are filled in. So you can go into, this is just kind of high level. You can go into little details that you want to change. Maybe, and I like to do refinements and cuts one at a time. One thing I get a lot is I actually use it a lot for captions. Save the time to create captions. I think that's a great use case. And sometimes ChatGPT will throw 100 emojis and every other letter is an emoji.
Yeah, yes.
So you can I would say don't just take the first answer it gives you and say this is what it's capable of. Go back and refine it. Say, can you give me a response with no emojis? Maybe you want a fewer emojis. Maybe you want to make caption more conversational. All these things are things that you can ask it to do on refined drafts. They'll get you closer to a result that you want. So I would say one of the things that I see most people do is just write a question, get a response, and then just say, this isn't the response I want, and throw it away. But it's really about kind of working together. Pretend it's your writing partner or your friend who's helping you write copy. What would you say to get them closer to what you want? And this is the really nice thing, is that it does take some work up front to kind of refine that, but you do get to save kind of your chat history, and ChatGPT will remember that context. So think about it as an investment. The more you invest into teaching ChatGPT the type of content you want, the closer it will get to the next time you give it a question to that result that you wanted the first time. So it is a little bit of investment. I think it's a little bit of fun, but maybe everyone else doesn't. But just know it'll take you a little bit to get to the type of response you want. But then once you have that, it's it's already got this foundation. It can even have foundation about your location, your business, things like that. and then it will continue to provide responses based on that foundation.
Okay, so if I want to educate ChatGPT, I own the Simple Touches, we do social media marketing for realtors. How do I type that in there? Like, is there a way that I need to format that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say just give a background of my business and tell it why you're giving this. And it's really good at, like, if you give it that information and why you're giving it that information, it's really good at understanding that and using that as context moving forward. So let's say, you're going to write a blog article. Tell them before you write the blog article, it's a really good, important point. Tell them about your business. Tell them what you do, who you are. You can like copy and paste drafts of past emails or blogs you wrote and say, like, here's some examples of my writing style that I'd like you to emulate in the future. But very much like that, before you ask it a question, say, I want you to help with this task. Here's some background on my business, and here are some examples of past blog posts that I'd like you to kind of emulate. And you can break that down into multiple different responses. You can say, first I'm going to provide you background on my business. Here's one thing, here's another thing, here's a third thing.
Do you have to use like brackets or anything when you're giving it work samples?
No, I haven't. I have just been like, below is a word sample, and then I'll hit return, and then paste it in. And it's been able to understand that, like, here's the context of here's like my prompt, and here's what it is. You can also say something like, my next response will be an example of this.
So let's say I've given it some background in my business. I've given it a prompt and it's given me out something that is not super great. Mm-hmm. Can you give me an example of what you'd say next to help refine it?
Let's see. So I used the emojis example as one, but another one I like is, like, in my writing style, I like to be a little bit more conversational. Like, I don't like to be so like looking like it's some multi-conglomerate company, because that's not who I am. So I like to, if I get a response back and it's like, here are 5 valuable things. Valuable thing number 1, which is not how I'd write, I would say, can you refine this to be a little bit more conversational or informal? And then it will come back with another response.
And it knows that you're referencing what it just outputted.
Yep, exactly. And then another really effective thing that I found, and oftentimes, like, there'll be times when it gets it right, but there's often times where it's like, I will say 90% of the way there, and then I help refine and add my little touches the last 10% of the way there. Another little like tip or trick I really like is, if like that one response is not what you're looking for, or maybe not even close, you can even say, like, provide 5 different examples of a blog post for this. So then you get like 5 different versions of it, and then you can get to one that's maybe even closer to what you wanted. So you don't have to stick with just like, here, give me 1 blog post. You can also prompt it to say, hey, give me 5, give me 10 blog posts, or something like that.
Do you know the rights that we get with that? Like, are we allowed to advertise with stuff that's produced from ChatGPT?
I don't know. I think the legal stuff's like moving very quickly, and I won't even pretend to play a lawyer on TV. So I am not sure. I would say just, I haven't heard that there's anything around blog posts or content that like people are throwing restrictions on. But I know some of the generative art stuff gets interesting, because some of that is been using artist stuff that like they have put on the internet and didn't know it was going to be used that way. But I haven't heard anything, but I know it's moving pretty quickly.
I know there's a lot of artificial intelligence platforms out there. Why do you gravitate towards ChatGPT, or do you?
I do gravitate towards ChatGPT. Google has one as well, which I've heard good things about. And sometimes Edge I use as well, which is actually ChatGPT. Microsoft has a web browser called Edge, and then that is ChatGPT embedded in Edge. I think I use ChatGPT the most because it's like the most flexible. It's also been the most innovative. It's kind of been leading the innovations on new model versions and new features and new API stuff. So since it's been the leader, that's why I've gravitated towards that. I do try some of the other stuff. Edge is interesting because it will give you like sources of information, which ChatGPT won't. So sometimes it's nice to say, okay, where did you get this information from? And then you can read more about it.
Okay, that's a really good question, because I asked ChatGPT to find research or find data to back up something that I was giving a presentation on, and it was able to do it, and it cited some stuff. Do you have any insight on that kind of prompts?
I do know that the information cut, I believe it was like 2022 or something, that ChatGPT says it's only taken information from there, where Microsoft Edge's version of ChatGPT will pull the latest information. So I know there's a cutoff there. I actually have not been in ChatGPT asking it to cite its sources, but I think that's it's an interesting tip. How'd it go when you did that? Was it like actual sources that you could pull up?
It had really great quotes that I did use in my presentations. However, like it cited like 5 different sources, and I think one of them was like a 404 not found. So I'm not sure where it came from.
Yeah, I would say that's ChatGPT, and maybe you've heard this before, but maybe you haven't, is very good at also making stuff up and then putting things that are like made up with things that are true. And it like doesn't tell you, hey, I could have made this up, or I don't know if this is true. It will just always be like, here is like the source, and you're like, interesting. And then I'm glad you like looked further into it.
Weird. I didn't know that.
It's called like hallucinating, which is, it will just sometimes say things that are completely false, but behave like they're true. So sometimes when things are like very objective, it's good to, like you did, double check, make sure it's right. I usually use ChatGPT for more creative stuff, because it's okay if you kind of flourish some things and make some things up, but less so for like objective fact-based stuff, because it can make it up.
Interesting. Okay, so we mentioned like blog posts, captions. What's a way, or how do you leverage such a powerful tool for actual lead generation?
Yeah, and I would break it down into like 2 different categories. Like one is like more strategic, being like a strategic advisor in my business. And then 2 is more like hands-on keyboard, actually creating content, actually creating work. So I think it can do both of those things very well. Like I said, as someone who's running my business by myself, sometimes it's easy, and I'm sure everyone else has had this too, to like get in a rut. You're just like, I'm stuck on this like one thought, this one approach, or I don't know how to like zoom out or like think more holistically. So you might be thinking like, I just gotta create lots of blog posts and then I'll get leads. But sometimes it's nice to take a step back and be like, okay, how many of my current blog posts are generating leads, or how am I getting most of my leads today? So I like to first start with like more of a strategic conversation with ChatGPT. And here's like a prompt that you could use. Be like, hey, I am looking to audit my current lead generation systems. I would like you to act as a trusted real estate advisor, marketing advisor, and audit my current systems and make recommendations based on that. And then it will follow up with like a couple of questions and ask you about your business, and then can give you suggestions. And like we were talking about, sometimes these things could be made up. So up to you to make to look further into it. I wouldn't say this is like the gospel and just take it as gold, but I do think it is really something that's helpful for you to like have a different perspective, to think a little bit, zoom out a little bit, and have that conversation with yourself. It's very much like, I think of it like the Socratic method. It's a tool to ask me questions that help me answer and refine my own understanding. It might have suggestions, and those are just, think about it as like a friend's suggestions, but it's really good at asking you questions that make you think. And I think that's where it is really powerful. So that's one part, is like the strategic. And then once you go into, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, so is it pulling from all over the internet?
So ChatGPT is like cut off, I think it was last year, 2022. So it won't have most of the information on after that. And I've found if you have like a smaller website, like I've kind of tried to dig into like, who is Marty Markenson? And it's like, I don't know who he is. Which is like, oh, maybe next version you'll know who I am. But there's
that's where intelligence comes from, right? Is the internet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's trained on a bunch of data. Some of that data, we don't know what it is. ChatGPT hasn't been very upright about what the exact information is, but a lot of data on the internet was trained from, and it uses that for your answers, but it doesn't have everything on the internet, and ChatGPT isn't always updated information from the internet.
Okay, got it. So that was the first bucket.
Yeah. Second bucket is, yeah, more like hands-on keyboard, creating content. So like, let's pretend that we have gone through kind of like this business advisor Socratic method where ChatGPT's audited our things. We've asked us questions, it's made a suggestion. Maybe you're like, I don't know about that suggestion, it won't work on my market. Give me 5 other suggestions. And you're like, ooh, that one could work. And let's just make believe it's like a nurture sequence. It's like saying, you know, you have a lead capture tool. Maybe it's like searching for what's my house worth, something like that. But it's noticed that like your conversions on that aren't that great, or nobody's opening it. This is where I would have it like help refine my nurturing sequence. So something you can do is like, here's my current one, give it to that, give it some data on what you currently have, and give it a goal. Like, I want to increase like meetings booked. Can you give me like 5 email ideas or 5 emails in a sequence that will help with this goal, which is to increase the number of meetings booked. And it will give you like high level emails, and then I would drill into one of those. So let's say, let's draft email 1, and then that's where, you know, you can just say, give me a draft of that. It probably won't be perfect, but I wouldn't say just throw your hands up in the air. Just like use that as something that you can help refine and get closer to you want. I would say expect to get like 90% of the way there. And then with the last 10%, that's where we come into place. Where the person comes into place, add your tone, add your voice, add something that it doesn't know. Because it doesn't know everything, and I don't really go in expecting it's gonna do all my work for me. I think it's gonna help me figure out a good place to focus and then get me like 90% of the way there.
So you've mentioned a couple different ways to utilize it for lead generation. For real estate specifically, is there anything that realtors should be diving into to help save them time, to save them headache?
Yeah, I think one that comes up to place, just because I've been making so much social media content, is captions. I do use a lot for captions, and I've kind of refined it to have my voice. But I think that captions is a pretty good place to start. I know I just spend so much time thinking about it, and then it's like not a good trade-off the amount of time it takes for me to make a caption. So that's one, I think that's like a pretty easy win, where I like to say like, here's kind of the subject of the post, here's maybe a call to action, here's some of the content in the post, and it does a pretty good job of like filling that out. And what I've seen in social media too is like a lot of the caption is helping drive what shows up in your feed based on keywords and stuff like that. So that is helpful for it to like kind of get some of those keywords in there.
So I've tried to use it for captions, but it's always such a long output. And there's character limits, right? And so is there a way to give it any sort of restrictions as far as like, I'll say 1 paragraph, it shoots me out 5 paragraphs?
Yeah, I mean, you can just say, can you make a shorter version of this? I do that a lot. Can you shorten this? Can you make it 5 lines? Can you make it, it's not very good at like exact numbers. So I like to say, can you shorten it? Can you make it a couple of lines? I mean, this is a little bit further down the funnel, but emails, if you have emails that you like to send people as reminders, if you have like a bit of a structure of like, you know, here's a market report from my area, maybe you're pulling that information from different sources, and you want to transfer that into email, ChatGPT would be really good at that. Here's some local restaurants that I've really enjoyed in the past, you know, year, and transferring that to more of an email, you know, give the restaurants, give it what you liked about that, and transfer that into an email that I can send to my news list. Something like that could work really well as well.
How do you feel about realtors using it for property descriptions?
I think it's a good idea. I think that it is gonna help save you time. I think that I don't expect the whole world is like the world's best copywriters. I think it's a skill that some people have and some people aren't as good at. So I think if you acknowledge that maybe you're not the best copywriter, then it could be a tool to help with that for sure.
What do you feel like most people get wrong when they use ChatGPT?
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't really in the mindset of this is something that I can like fine tune and refine. They just take like the first answer, and if it's not good or close to what they want, they just give up and don't realize it's very malleable. It's kind of like clay that you can shape to get closer to the information that you want. It does take some refining And much like people today are pretty good at typing search results into Google to get what they want, it's not exactly how you would speak. I think there's also a skill to how you would like refine the responses that it gives to you. Either use tools like, okay, this isn't close to what I want, give me 5 more versions of this. Giving it tools to help shape its tone, like be a little bit more formal, be a little bit more from a buyer who's more interested in luxury. All these types of fine-tuning things, I think, come in handy. And then sharing past examples of things that you like is something that it's really good at picking up and then continuing on for like future versions.
So I've already like dabbled in ChatGPT, and like on the left toolbar, there's like different benchmarks, I guess I don't know how they determine those. Have I messed it up because I haven't like given it enough information about me, or like, because the thing that I'm worried about is sometimes I'll use it for me and sometimes I'll use it for my clients. So I feel like maybe it's confused of like my job.
Good question. So like, yeah, on the left side, there's a bunch of different chat bars. Each of those are like blank. You can think about ChatGPT, each time you chat with it, it starts in completely blank. And then you have to fine tune and build that understanding. But in that little chat bar, it will keep all that information. You start a new chat, it starts from 0, it's blank. They just did release a feature that's like, you can bake some of that information into it so that in all new chats, it will take that into account. But for now, I don't have that set because I'm not like you. I use it for like lots of different voices and purposes. It's hard for me to generalize what's like the one thing I want to remember. So each chat starts from scratch. It's like completely fresh.
So if I take the time to like inform it about me and my business, it won't stay there.
It will stay in the specific chat and it will remember all that stuff in that chat. But if you start a new chat, then yeah, you have to start from scratch.
So I can re-enter that chat.
You could, yeah. I haven't played around that too much, but you could probably re-enter all the things that you provided to get you to like its understanding where it is now.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so and you've touched on this a little bit, but what types of tasks is ChatGPT best at?
I think it's best at like, if you are staring at a blank sheet of paper, or if you're like stuck in a rut, how do you get like over that writer's block, or how do you zoom out in your business a little bit more? I think those things it's like really helpful for, like to get you from not knowing what to do next to having a step that you can do next, which I think is like honestly sometimes the hardest part is like, I'm stuck not doing anything. What can be the next thing I can do to move forward instead of just being kind of stuck in this rut that we all get into? So I think that's a really valuable skill, and a thing that as you like start to think about it, like here's a moment I'm stuck and I'm just looking for what's the next action I could take, because I don't know what the perfect solution is. Nobody does, but sometimes you get to that perfect solution by taking one step forward. I think that's where ChatGPT is really helpful. It's like, it's very objective of like, here's what you should do. And you're like, here's what I should do. I'm going to do it. And sometimes that's what you need, is just kind of a kick in the butt of just like, here's something you can do next, and it's going to get you closer to the step, because no one always knows all the answers, but sometimes the answer is just, doing something to learn more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question is only because I know you've been researching lead generation a lot lately. So within ChatGPT or otherwise, what is a tip you have for realtors when it comes to lead generation?
Is to actually map out and learn where you're getting your leads from. I think a lot of realtors which works and does work, is working on their sphere of influence, their local network, and it's just hard to know when leads are going to come in. And that's a lot how my business is very organic, very, based on messages and emails I get. But I think that is one part of your leads and should continue to be. But the other part should be a little bit more systematic and like more formulaic, which is what I've been thinking a lot about, is how can I get to a place where, here's a source that's getting me this much traffic. Of that traffic, X amount are signing up for my newsletter. Of those people who are signing up my newsletter, this many people are booking a meeting with me. So I think there's kind of two places where you can get leads: that kind of word of mouth, your network, but also like a more systematic system I think has been really helpful. And what I've been focusing on is, where am I getting most of my traffic from? Where's that traffic going the most? How am I following up with that traffic? And it takes time. It's been a lot. It's been I wish it could come together in a week or a month, but it's not. It's a bunch of systems. But I think those are systems that will help just accelerate your growth once you have, that organic kind of your network, as well as more systematic, whether it be potentially ads, whether it be just having a better system for your organic content to go through. I think that's a really important thing to think about and focus, and just know it doesn't come to fruition in a day or a week or a month, but you have to start like one step at a time.
Yeah, I completely relate to that with my business. And I have this diagram that I made when it comes to like social media marketing, because on one hand, you have people commenting, messaging, and you set the appointment that way. And that's kind of like the organic piece you were talking about. And on the other hand, when you're there and ready and you have the time to set it all up, you have this automated system where they can click and schedule themselves, and then they go into this follow-up system and like all these things. And I think having both is really powerful. So I completely hear you on that one. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can follow me at Cavelit Creations. That's the best place to follow me. You can check out some gifts on my website if you're interested, and send me a DM.
Thanks so much, Marty.